Hey guys, I just want to take a minute to talk about my recovery journey with Sensorimotor OCD. If you just make sure you like and subscribe down at the bottom, leave any comments if you have any questions. So my recovery has been going on for almost 4 years now. So about, I think, 4 years towards the end of this year. Initially, what had happened to me was when my sensorimotor really took control of my life. I had 3 hernias all at the same time. I think I've told the story on a few of my videos, and the doctors really couldn't figure out what was going on with me, and I had a ton of pain nonstop. I couldn't sleep really well. I was vomiting in my sleep sometimes. My stomach was in my chest, and they didn't really know. They didn't really know at the time, and I had a ton of pain for probably 6 months. It was like level 10. Just nonstop, could barely sleep, and I just ended up obsessing about my body sensations all the time. And then I ended up reading something online one time about hiatal hernia, and then I ended up obsessing about swallowing all the time because supposedly it made you feel like you had something, a sensation in your throat, like you're swallowing for your saliva. So I started focusing on my breathing and my saliva nonstop, and at the time, I mean, 24/7. I mean, from when I woke up, went to sleep, I mean, just non-stop, constant, crazy, insane anxiety. I wanted to honestly just kill myself. Like, it's all I could think about. I was stuck for 2 years chronically. I had a point where in that 2-year period before I ever talked to, like, let's say Rob, there was maybe like a 6-week period where I had recovered for about 6 weeks. And besides that, it was just nonstop. I ended up going from, at the time I was in Indiana at the time, and then I ended up going to Colorado, and then South Dakota. So the whole time I was moving, I moved multiple times with my job, and I was just chronically anxious, could barely function. I was taking ketamine prescribed by a doctor 10 times a day. I was drinking pretty much every single day. It was the only thing that helped, honestly, was drinking or the ketamine, just nonstop. I mean, 10 times a day on the ketamine, drinking every night. I could barely, I mean, I was working, but just, man, it was just so bad. It's crazy even thinking about how it was at the time. And I was chronically, I tried to do every single kind of therapy you can imagine. I did EMDR, I did hypnotism, cognitive behavioral therapy. I saw 4 or 5 different counselors. I did some kind of like kinesiology thing, like touch for health therapy. I tried every diet you could imagine. I was chronically trying to also exercise all the time. I was a certified yoga teacher, so I was doing chanting. Like I would chant, like I would do Tibetan chants that I learned in my yoga teacher training constantly. Just trying to figure things out. I compulsively at one point, I remember reading the Bible every day, nonstop, praying, because I just didn't understand what was going on, what was wrong with me, and it just seemed like I was just desperately trying to find anything that could fix it. And I was Googling one day, and I Googled like ways to help with therapy and stuff. And then I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I can find something on Instagram. So then I looked on Instagram, and I ended up seeing OCD recovery. I saw Rob's page, and I scrolled through some of the posts, and I saw a post, and it had said, "You are not broken." And I remember seeing it and got kind of emotional because I had all my life told myself that I was broken, that something was seriously wrong with me, because I had always just gotten these situations where I couldn't stop thinking about certain things, and it just made my life miserable. I mean, throughout my life, I mean, things I dealt with, symmetrical OCD when I was younger, compulsively locking doors. I had a lot of things surrounding sex, POCD. I was always worried about someone hurting me, harm OCD, harming others, health OCD, really, really bad. And I didn't, but I still had it, my life relatively under control during the health OCD. And so I really experienced all of this. And when I saw that post, I was just like, wow, like, okay. So then I started reading through all the posts, and I was like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, or, I think I said something like, man, this, I can really relate to this. So I ended up messaging him, and I was like, hey, thank you, for your posts. They really resonate with me, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community, blah, blah, blah. And I'd never been actually diagnosed. I had a couple counselors say that I had it, but I didn't know for sure, right? Because I thought it was something else, right? That's what everyone always thinks when they have OCD. And so I ended up messaging Rob, and he was like, hey, he's like, do you have OCD? And I was, after I had, said thank you and stuff, and I was like, I think so. And he's like, I can help you. And I was just like, cool, because I tried everything. Like, I literally spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and hours of counseling, and I ended up doing a session with him. And at the time, I was compulsively thinking about my breathing because I was afraid that I was going to have a panic attack, because I thought that if I had a panic attack, I would end up killing myself. So I constantly tried to regulate my breathing, but because of the pain that I had experienced through the surgeries, I was going back and forth from my saliva and my breathing, worried about having panic attacks, because my panic attacks would turn into seizures. So within 30 days, I went from just not being able to handle life and wanting to die every day to I was exercising every single day. I was back working at full capacity, seriously uncomfortable all the time though, not gonna lie. But after a month, I was not afraid of a panic attack anymore. And it's because I remember putting myself in a situation where Rob had literally said something to me. He's like, you need to just have a panic attack and be willing to have the worst case scenario happen. So I remember going to the gym and running, and my heart beating so fast, and I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack. So I told myself, cool, I'm gonna have a panic attack. There's a first aid person here. There's a hospital close by. Great news, I'm gonna be in a situation where if I have a panic attack, I'm in the best case scenario. And so I just was like, F it, I'm gonna have a panic attack. And I almost like tried to make myself have a panic attack, or even when I started to feel those sensations for weeks at a time, anytime I would think I was gonna have a panic attack, instead of trying to run or move, I would sit down and I would be like, okay, cool, go. And I would just wait, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's have a panic attack. And within 30 days, I literally since then have never had a panic attack. I've had a few times where I felt like I was going to have one, or even long periods of time where I felt like I was going to have one, but never actually had a panic attack since then. And that was after one session. And so I started seeing Rob, once a week for about 4, 5, 6 weeks. Then it was every 2 or 3 weeks. Then it was once a month, and it was every few months, and it kept getting, farther and farther apart. And I had some spots that were really bad, and I contacted Rob, and he would help me get through it. And, I remember I would have times where I literally had recovered for a month or 2 months, and then it would come back. And every time it would come back, it would get more and more difficult, and or at least I thought, And I got in a scenario where, I decided to put myself in the most uncomfortable scenario. I had moved across the country to start a business in Oklahoma after about a year into recovery. And I had broke up with my girlfriend at the time, not for our OCD, just because it was a good idea. And I moved to Oklahoma, lived by myself, had never really lived by myself since I just really have never lived by myself. So I was by myself every day for months, and I just went to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I exercised. I just tried to have a balanced life, and just brought it for the ride. Was super uncomfortable, and then one day it was gone. I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden it was gone. And I had about a year and a half where it was just nothing, almost. I literally zero anxiety. Didn't matter what I did, just nothing. I could be, and I had situations where, I was uncomfortable or irritated or frustrated, and I just said, F it, and I just went with it, and I literally had no anxiety. It's really crazy. And then during this time, I was in a scenario where I was talking to a few people in the group. Nick had reached out to me early on in my recovery, and we had talked a little bit back and forth. I know that he'd saw one of my early videos with about a year into recovery, and we had became kind of acquaintances, buddies, whatever. And I hadn't really participated as much in the group during this time of feeling so well, and then all of a sudden I had a spike, or whatever you want to call it, and it was a pretty big one. I started having new themes popping up that were moving every day. We're trying to change constantly. Lots of body sensations. Feeling like I was going to explode from energy, feeling like I was going to vomit constantly, really bad headaches, body pains, upset stomach, diarrhea, random pains in my body, neck tightening. The neck tightening thing would tighten so bad. And I was just constantly thinking about my saliva or my breathing, and it went up and down for March, 7, 8, 9 months. And during this time, there was a few people that became a lot more active in the group, like Mamin and Nick, obviously. And so I started talking to Rob a little bit more consistently, like once every month or month and a half, while I was chronically uncomfortable. And then I started reaching out to Nick, and I ended up becoming good friends with Nick, and we started talking on a regular basis, like too much, but we would talk about just like random things, whatever. And one thing that was really cool about Nick is he started to really educate me on a lot of things about OCD. I didn't understand about the mental compulsions and the ruminating, and I had read the books for the most part, but I hadn't read one of them. It was At Last Alive by Paul David, believe it or not, but I'd read multiple other books multiple times. And I finally ended up reading that book, and as soon as I read that book, I completely got my life back. Like it was crazy. Like I didn't care if I was uncomfortable at all. And once I was a little more educated on the disorder, I was really able to understand it. And no matter what happened, sometimes even being uncomfortable, I was able to really, really push myself to get through it. And I've had a few ups and downs here or there, but since that experience happened, I was able to really gain a lot of insight about the disorder. And I was really uncomfortable for a long time. I feel like everyone's journey is different. Mine, I don't know if it's just me, but holy crap, like I had a lot of body sensations for a long time, and I'll occasionally still have some that come up, but the difference is they do not affect my daily life at all. Does not matter what happens. I do the same thing every single day, and it's such an amazing feeling. And I'll tell you, the biggest things that made the difference for me was, one, reading every single book on the reading list. Like, holy crap, like reading every single book, okay? Second thing is be uncomfortable. Stop trying to make it go away. You have to not fight. Like, as soon as you give up and stop trying to fight it and you just let it happen, you will see you will see that your freedom will start to come. You will see it, okay? And then the other thing is, you've got to take time to work on the fears. The fears are what drives everything, and you've got to use your mental compulsions, like ruminating, internal thermometer, and they will point you in the direction you need to go to break down those fears, right? And I was very lucky that I was able to talk to Nick and him educate me on the disorder, and I've been working with Rob for a few years, and the other thing I'll tell you is I put it off. I didn't make it a priority, and it shows. It took me longer. I feel like if I would have read all the books and really practiced it instead of just been like, oh, I feel better, I would be in a lot better situation. So it's just one of those things where you're just going to have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And, I'm, like I said, I'm super grateful for the opportunity. There's times when, things can be kind of sucky, but because they've happened, my life has gained so much more. There's things now that happen that do not bug me at all. And I see, the point of view and the perspective that I have on life has been just, it's been amazing. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And what I'll tell you is, it's one of those things where, it's going to take time, but it's possible and you can do it. So, anyways, that's a part of my recovery story and my journey, guys. And I hope everyone has a great day.